Well, we can go on to the recording channel if we want to make it super official.
No, it's fine. Let's do it here. Let's see. I should have started recording, but not so sure about this stuff. It says that it's streaming, but am I live or not? Can't see it on my channel. Gosh. I went out of my way to just...
I see it live.
Ah, you see it live. Okay, so let's say that we are live. So let's start with you, Vas. Is this your first time? Obviously, this is not the first time you're watching Code Geass Season 2, but is this the first time you're rewatching it? Was it any different from what you remembered it, Vas?
I have watched the entirety of Code Geass probably like a dozen
Can't see it
times
on my channel.
overall, so it wasn't it wasn't my first watch, it
Gosh.
wasn't even my first rewatch. So
So, yeah.
well, as we mentioned in the previous, well, I don't know if we were recording at the time, but yeah, there were significant changes to the plot between the first season and the second season, and well, you know, the whole arc about Suzaku's presumably supernatural reflexes, for example, was dropped. I really like the second season, but yeah, there are quite large differences in terms of the direction of the series. It makes, you know, if you don't know there were major changes between the two seasons, perhaps you wouldn't even have noticed. But, you know, knowing that there were issues in the production, in hindsight, you can spot clearly where plans have changed.
Yeah, I'd say it definitely does smell of production issues. I've pointed out that a lot of the school stuff feels weirdly jammed in and not as well thought through as it was in the first season. It feels like a drag, and some of it is frankly too silly for the plot that Code Geass is telling. It was always meant to be silly, but Lelouch has his ninja wife, ninja maid, interpret his voice and face perfectly, and then she gets him onto like 1,000 different dates over 6 months because I don't know, she's a psycho. Stuff like that smells of some producer shouting at the directors, "No, make it wackier. We want school hijinks."
From what I've heard about the production, apparently they were intending to have more episodes, but yeah, so it does feel that way. To be honest, though, I did feel like this season was more serious. There was less comedy, or unserious moments. Especially after around episode 13 or so, it was all serious all the way through.
Yes. Well, personally, I like faster-paced series. I'm a bit of a psycho when it comes to that. Well, there is the things as too fast-paced, but I think the fact that there were limitations in terms of, you know, number of episodes served this particular series well, because, you know, it's a pretty fast watch. No one can deny that. So it works in this particular case.
I see. So
you can compare it if you watch it back to back, for example, with Gundam Seed Destiny, which has some similar themes, but a lot more episodes. I think like 100 episodes or something like that.
50.
Yeah, Destiny, Gundam Seed, and Gundam Seed Destiny feel more,
yeah,
you know, if you in their totality. I mean, they feel more of a drag, shall we say, than Code Geass.
Yes, definitely.
BioGundam, who was here for our previous discussion about season 1, said that one of the reasons why he didn't want to take part in this discussion is because he has already said everything that there has to be said in the season 1 discussion. Lou, do you think that basically season 2 is just an extension of season 1, and I guess thematically it doesn't really add much. There isn't much more to talk about than in season 1, Lou?
I really liked season 2. I think it's kind of the culmination of Lelouch's character, because it's him and how he's faced with all these obstacles, and a lot of his motivations are stripped away from him, and we get to see like where does he go once some of his motivations are stripped, and then he has to like reform his morals, maybe not morals, but just like how he's going to approach things. Because first it's for Nunnally, and then Nunnally gets, taken from him. So then it's for, I got to destroy Britannia, and he kind of goes through like an existential crisis. So it's kind of like Lelouch as a character is like breaking apart. It's like, is he going to stay together? Is he not? And so we're kind of like looking at, and then his character kind of solidifies by the end, and the only person he doesn't lie to in the entire series is, I believe, Suzaku. And that's the person who he makes the deal with at the end of the series for the Zero Requiem. So I believe it all just kind of formulates to that key point. So I think there is a
Yes.
purpose to season 2.
And so another one of the complaints which Bio Gundam had was that he said that there's nothing else to talk other than Shirley's death and the ending. I don't know if you guys remember, but there used to be a YouTuber who used to say that the ending is paramount. Do any of you guys remember that? No.
I've heard that. I don't know who
It's
you associate with.
GR Arcada Glass Reflection. He used to say.
Oh
that.
yeah. He's still around. He's still around.
Yeah, he's still around, but he doesn't say that anymore. So in this case, did you feel like the ending was paramount, Heraclius?
Yeah, this show's ending is very famous. I think for good reason. This is one of those endings which is incredibly well directed, incredibly well executed in concept, and I can have a lot of niggles in terms of I don't think like such a thing would necessarily lead to peace on Earth, that there'd still be all these niggling underlying issues. But at the same time, the ending is so well dramatically executed with the music and with how over dramatic it is, like how all of Code Geass is, that I honestly don't care. Like, people remember this ending and have remembered this ending for like a decade plus, and admittedly part of that was spanning fan theories about if Lelouch was alive or dead, and eventually they made a movie series where they decided that he was dead, but we're going to bring him back anyways.
Yes.
But yeah, the ending is definitely one of the strongest parts of R2, and it is kind of an ingenious little plot that Lelouch and Suzaku decide to put together.
Yeah. So, Vance. So, what GR Arcada or Glass Reflection meant was that, but by saying that the ending is paramount, is that the ending is the most important thing. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but another criticism I've heard is that there's a lot of people who liked the ending, but they just like the ending. They don't like season 2. They think that season 2 is bad, and that people just like it, just like Code Geass because of the ending, because the ending was so good. even though what took us there wasn't really that good. So people, do you agree with that? Do you think that the ending is so much better that people are ignoring uh, the things which are not so good in season 2, especially?
Well, personally, I haven't met a single person who has made that argument, so I wouldn't want to, respond to my imagination. So, but in terms of the ending being paramount, well, I think with hindsight now, I mean, we've all probably seen Game of Thrones. We have seen how, like, people legitimately say in comments that they want to binge watch the series all over again with family members who haven't watched the series at all, but they can't do it because the ending is so anticlimactic. So maybe the ending isn't the most important part of a work, but definitely you can fuck it up so much that nobody can watch the series. As for Code Geass in particular, well, the TV version had a slightly different ending that, basically showed the lower half of Lelouch's face smiling and, clearly indicating that he survived somehow the suicide by Suzaku.
Now, was that? I've seen clips of that, and I was watching just a torrent on. But
I watched it as it was
I
airing.
yeah, I've seen that clip before, but it's never been clear to me whether that was official or not.
I don't remember that,
I think,
but it could
if
have
I
happened for
recall
sure.
correctly, it was changed on the Blu-ray release. Yeah.
Was
Well,
it?
it's still kind of. I think it's still kind of. Well, I don't think. I'm sure it's meant to be ambiguous. So
Yes.
you're allowed to believe that Lelouch somehow survived for your fanfic, I suppose. But I mean, the more likely and straightforward interpretation is that he died, and Situ is speaking to herself.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah, go on.
Oh yeah. I found it right here. This is the. Someone's putting it as the DVD ending, and I can link it here. But yeah, that is actually too well drawn. The little shot they have of the of Lelouch's chin for it to not be official.
So, Lou, one of the other criticisms which I've seen made is that the fact that they brought Lelouch back to life uh, uh, basically ruins the ending because, well, I mean, it just makes the sacrifice meaningless because, well, he might have thought that he would have died, but I mean, from the perspective of the audience, narratively speaking, that. They shouldn't. They should have just left him dead. So basically, like in Ashira no Jo or something like that. What do you think, Lou?
I think leaving it ambiguous is kind of cool. I mean, it depends how season 3 is. I don't know. Leaving on a cliffhanger is neat. I think that leaving it kind of ambiguous and then having Lelouch. I haven't seen the movies, so I don't know if those are. I hear they're bad, but what do you
Yeah,
guys think?
there was one movie there were two compilation movies which are worthless to watch, and then there was one sequel movie which felt if you thought season 2 was rushed, welcome to
I did
welcome
not
to
feel
the
like it was
jungle.
rushed.
Yeah, it's not overwhelming, but it is without a doubt a fact that that this movie feels rushed. It feels like a full OVA series that they've squished into a movie, and on top of that, it almost feels like a first or second draft. There really needed to be a lot of polishing. I found myself. Lelouch only comes back like halfway into the movie, and half of the movie is dedicated to just bringing him back to life. And by that point, when Lelouch did come back, I felt almost jolted out of it. Like, oh my gosh, Lelouch is alive and doing his shtick. This is fun. Where has this been this whole movie?
You think if they would, you think if they hinted Lelouch at the end of R2 that like they would use something like maybe make him kind of analogous to his father, where his father became immortal. Like maybe somehow Lelouch got the immortality.
Yeah, that was the fan theory that was most popular, and for whatever reason, they didn't do that. Instead, they have like a weird thing going on where Lelouch's body is alive, but it's soulless, and his soul is off somewhere else, and and they have to go through a ritual in order to reunite his soul with his body, and it's beyond weird. And yeah, I agree.
Double down on the Eva.
It is, and it's honestly completely superfluous because that takes up half of the movie, and that's half of the movie that could have been used for other better things.
Yeah, nobody watches Code Geass for the mystical or occult elements. It's like for the mech battles, for the big ham characters, for the political thriller aspects. Nobody watches it because, oh man, I want to see witchcraft and mech robots. Just watch Evangelion.
But the season 2 ending was not ruined for you just because they just brought back Lelouch in this lame way, I guess.
I don't consider the films canon personally.
Yeah, in technicality, they consider it a separate canon because there's actually like a tiny part of it which actually relies on Shirley being alive, which he is in the compilation movies. Well,
Surely did. Surely did.
Yeah, Shirley did. It's like she knows Lucius' identity and like saves his body or some shit like that. It's super weird. But I'm sure that was put in as like sort of that they knew that they could only get through so much in the compilation movies. So it was like, okay, here's an excuse to separate the canon, sort of, so that people don't get upset about us changing things from that prior season, and we didn't completely undercut Lelouch's sacrifice. We just did it in an alternate universe.
I personally, although I hate the compilation movies and the sequel movie, I love them because the classic criticisms that Code Geass receives, that it has too much school time, that you shouldn't have died, all the stuff that people who have watched Code Geass, the prototypical complaints. It does none of that, and it's worse because it doesn't do that. So I mean.
I don't know. I mean, there's also many other things wrong with it because I don't think that the movies stand by themselves. There's just so much stuff happening. To be fair, I think it's there's 3 compilation movies, not 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
Yeah, but still, even within that time, I mean, to cram all of the stuff which happens in the series, and most of it is just a reused animation with very few new scenes. There were a few new scenes in the second movie, but yeah.
Yeah, Japan does those compilation movies every so often. It's something they can get away with. Yeah, it's something they can get away with simply because Blu-rays are stupid expensive. Like, a single season of Code Geass would probably be something like $250 to purchase on Blu-ray there. So, a lot of people who are going to say, yeah, screw that, will either wait until it reruns on TV, which is very, very, very rare. Or
yeah, I mean, they did try pretty hard to show, or rather to milk Code Geass. I mean, there's like 4 different manga, which are all in alternate universe. I think that there's one which is not in an alternate universe, but it's hundreds of years ago.
It feels a little bit like Escaflowne in that regard,
Yeah.
Sunrise had Escaflowne as this internal idea for a while, and then they had like 3 or so different adaptations: a manga, an anime, and the movie, which were all stemming from the one single idea, but they all went off in wild directions. And Geass feels a little similar to that. Sunrise, in general, if you've got, will have like a zillion adaptations once something is popular or once they have an idea or an IP that they think is really good.
Yeah, so for example, there's apparently a Code Geass manga which follows the story of the anime, but there's no nightmare frames. So
Yes.
and
Yeah,
it's,
I've always
Yes, Nightmare of
sort of
Nanari.
wondered-
is it
Huh?
any good? I mean, it's 9 volumes long. I think.
Gundam with no Gundam. Gundam with no
Yeah.
Gundam.
It's like, what?
Yeah, basically, kill the crown then.
Yeah. So I guess in according to you guys, the ending was not ruined. I guess so. Other than, I guess there's Shirley's death as well. Do you guys have any thoughts on it? I guess it was sad or something.
It's sad and it's a well done scene. But at the same time, it's part of the school arc that I think in this show should have been excised entirely.
Let me be devil's advocate. Okay, let me be devil's advocate. Okay, because I think because all your complaints were the wacky school episodes, and I don't like them either. I want them out. Okay, but in defense of the wacky school episode, which I know the exact one you're talking about with the fucking weird hats, and everyone's trying to get Lulu, and it's just
that was
okay.
shit. Yeah.
Okay, it was right. I kind of liked it because it was kind of wholesome and it was kind of right after kind of a heavy scene. Okay. And so it goes right after it's like kind of like you're on 10 for like so many episodes. And then you get this kind of relaxing, kind of everyone's having fun, goofing off episode. And at the end, there is kind of you do kind of get a little bit like at the very end of that episode, Shirley gets her memory back. Like at the very end of that episode. So there is kind of like that.
Yes.
Like dun 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 at the very end. So I kind of liked the episode a little bit. But I do not like the school stuff in general.
No, everything you said is quite correct. For me, it's just the issue of there is too much logic they have to bend and almost, I'd say, murder.
Definitely. When the nightmare. Okay.
Going back.
Okay, but when the nightmare frame comes and like when the little girl nightmare frame comes and bashes a hole through the school wall, I laughed out loud. I was like, okay, this episode is complete lols. Okay, because that is not realistic at all. Like that, like basically the Knights of Rounds are Inquisitors from 40K. Like they can just do whatever they want, but that was still kind of like, okay, you just attacked a school.
Yeah, who's gonna stop us?
So another criticism which I've seen of season 2 is that there's more fan service, or there's too much fan service, especially with
I loved all of it. I loved it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sounds like hindsight bias, or rather, this sounds like a criticism people would have had in the day, and it was mostly people just looking for complaints.
I thought it was all very tasteful fan service. Very tasteful.
Yeah, it was never bothersome to me in any capacity. It's the old school fan service thing where it's like someone posted up and it's like Colin being captured and carted off, and oh look, she's in a pilot suit, which of course is naturally somewhat form-fitting, and on top of that,
butt shot.
Yeah, stuff like that.
But
which is the same as last show. I mean, did you not watch the last season?
I mean, but
I loved it.
Did it hurt did it make it harder for you to take it seriously?
No.
Did you guys even watch Evangelion? I mean, like Rebuild of Evangelion episode, the second movie, where Asuka is wearing the test pilot plug sleeve.
Yes.
But I don't take Rebuild of Eva seriously, to be honest.
No, 2.0 is good.
Yeah, all the people, like 100% of people that I have heard complain about fan service, like in general, not specifically about Code Geass. If you stick around them for like more than 2 hours, I suppose, you discover they have some serious self-esteem and insecurity issues. Right? Like, okay, I mean, I have seen 3 people who don't watch anime, like in general, like especially really good series, like from a literary standpoint, well written, well directed, anime in general. They avoid because they hear there's a butt here, some breasts there, and if you see what relationship they have with the women in their lives, it's completely pathological. So I don't take the criticism seriously because honestly, it says more about the psychology of the person making it than genuine criticism.
I see. What did you guys? So I guess we've already talked about the voice acting last season. But I'm looking at Snob's review, and I don't know. He says that Lelouch sounds imposing but turns really lame when increasing the decibels of that artificially deep tone voice of his.
I mean, he might be talking about the subbed version for that perspective, because Jun Fukuyama talks incredibly deeply.
I like it.
That's the main reason I prefer the Code Geass dub. Is I actually agree. I don't like Jun Fukuyama's performance. He sounds too over the
He's
top.
fantastical. Yeah, exactly. That's what he's doing.
Yes,
I like that.
yes, he is fantastical. But the issue is he it's like he's playing Zero at all times. It's like he's never playing Lelouch at any time.
Yeah, that is kind of correct.
So did any of you guys watch the sub version, or was it all dubbed? All you guys?
I did.
I have never seen the dubbed version, so.
Yeah,
I watched dubbed the very first. No, I never watched dubbed ever.
Yeah, I really like the dub. I've been over this before, but Johnny Young Bosch, I think, does an absolutely fantastic job as Lelouch. He very much is able to balance it. Like, he is able to be incredibly dramatic in the scenes where it matters. Like there's this scene where he talks about he's going to confront Charles, and he's like, "If anyone can reach the levels of my despair, then come, let them try and stop me." And it's just incredibly well delivered. The whole showdown with Charles, incredibly well delivered.
So so I think earlier when we started recording, you were saying that you thought that most of that there were basically no loose ends left. That they explain everything that they asked to explain, or is there anything which you felt was left unexplained?
I'm sure there might be some tiny side plot issues, but I actually thought most of it was pretty well explained. We have. Yes?
How did the dude get away? The prince, I forgot her name, but the princess with pink hair, her like subordinate that's Euphemia. Okay, her subordinate that's super. Yeah, Cornelia. Her subordinate that's super loyal. He got caught in the nuclear explosion, okay? But then you see him later, like he survived. How do you survive?
The same black hole that Nunnally came out of.
Exactly. So he was somehow stuck with... so he found the real Nunnally, and he was just... Oh my gosh, okay. And he sent a fake message to Zero. Okay, I got it.
I think in Nunnally's case, there was something about there being another ship to take her or something, and I don't know.
No, there is zero explanation. There is, unless they put something in the end credit scenes, there is zero explanation.
I mean, I guess I also didn't get how Suzaku survived the explosion after Cullen impaled her
You know how I minded that
there
was
was
that
no.
Colin was in on it. That's how I minded it. I don't know.
Oh, but there's no fucking way she is. Like, she's clearly shocked in the final episode. Like, she puts it all
When he
together.
dies.
Yeah, when Lelouch dies,
Well, I think
she puts.
Suzaku's the only person he told about that.
Yeah, clearly. Oh, well, C2 as well, obviously.
I think he might have told Nina. I don't know because I was like, how is Nina siding? Like, I'm like, there's no way she would side with him unless she knew he was gonna die. Maybe, but maybe killing 10 million Japanese people, changes a person.
Well, I'm not sure she really knows that. Well, I'm not sure she actually knows that Lelouch is the one that killed all of Euphemia's.
Oh. I don't know.
That
She
killed
wants to.
Euphemia.
She knows that Lelouch is zero, and she wanted to kill. Like, because she tried to stab him in that thing. Yeah, she tried to stab him.
No, but
I'm
when
pretty
she
sure
tried to stab him when he was zero.
Yeah, but
and the fact that Lelouch is zero is not.
But
public knowledge.
Lelouch
It's only
says that
given
she
to-
hates him.
Yeah, that's
So-
true. So that does speak to it. So maybe she. Yeah, that is sort of just
Like, everybody knows that Lelouch is zero at this point because
No, they don't actually. It's literally just the Black Knights because they rationalize it as no one among the greater populace would believe Geass. Therefore, we're just going to claim, oh, Zero died after the battle.
Oh yeah. Right.
Vas, can you explain what the Ragnarok connection is?
Okay, so basically, this was a theme in anime before the 2010s. There was a lot of existentialist anime, partially influenced by Evangelion, which also has some existentialist themes in the end of Evangelion. Basically, Charles' position is that if people truly knew everything there is to know about each other, like there was no barrier between people's brains, the social filters, I would say, between people's thoughts and what they are saying or what they are acting out, that everything would be better, that everything bad in the world is because of miscommunication. Yes, this is, partially a result of his life experiences. He grew up having been born, in a very weird royal family, and has a Geass, which symbolizes the ability of an absolute tyrant to rewrite history by partially rewriting people's memories. So you can see why he has the ideology that he has. And this isn't Lelouch's position. He believes that it's necessary to wear a mask in order to have a functioning society. And that is the point of the Mao arc in season 1. If you only watch season 1, you don't understand why Mao even exists. But his existence gives an internal justification for the Ragnarok weirdness that happens in the second season, because it shows you if you have everything that people think in your brain, it overwhelms you and makes you hate people, because people have some weird thoughts sometimes.
I actually hadn't thought about the connection to Mao there, but you're quite right about that. But I think what Good Student was getting at, and this is something that was unclear to me, is what, let's say Charles's plan actually goes through. What physically changes? It wasn't clear to me whether it's instrumentality and everyone turns into goop, or whether it was something more mild, like just no one will be able to lie to one another, or people will just implicitly understand one another's thoughts. They also make mention of like the dead will rejoin the living. I got very much the message of what Charles is going for and why Lelouch rejected it, but I was very, very much did not understand the actual mechanics of what would physically happen once the plan went through.
Yes, I've watched the scene like a lot of times. It isn't actually very clear what is going on. It isn't, you aren't stupid for being confused. It is legitimately
Those
confusing.
giant stone slabs, okay? Now, when the girl touches it, Lelouch's mom goes into it, okay? But do Lelouch and his dad physically go into the stones? What happens here, guys?
Well,
Yeah.
Marion
Because
doesn't have.
I got a sense there was some sort of teleportation aspect to the stones. I don't even know.
Don't think about
I
it.
guess Marion is borrowing a body, so it'll only bring like the body and soul that is attached to a person, maybe, or maybe she was able to will herself in there because she didn't need to bring Anya in, or really just because they needed to be dramatic and they needed Lelouch to see his mother there.
My interpretation is close that the physical result is closer to instrumentality than a milder version. And well, this is my interpretation because that's pretty much the themes of anime around that period.
Yeah.
It happens, of course, in Evangelion, in Eureka 7. They all have to deal with the same.
Yeah, I assume they
the
were all going to get
physical
sucked
aspect.
into the computer,
Yes, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now, as far as characters go, would you guys agree with me that Suzaku is a weaker character in this season 2, that he has less going on?
I don't know.
Why is he so strong? It doesn't why is he so strong? Why is
Yes,
isn't he the Geass?
this is one of the
or something?
they try to explain it with Geass. This is one of the dropped plots. Suzaku is implied in season 1 that he has something
that.
supernatural about his body. This is dropped in season 2, and they're trying to explain it internally with the effects of Geass.
That Lelouch, that Suzaku has some sort of what trauma?
No, that he has some supernatural abilities.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think you mentioned that once. Yeah. Yeah, and then they try to explain. Basically, the idea is that by being Geass to live, that forces his brain to be at I guess you could say hypersensitive in battle.
Yeah, I can buy it. I can buy that.
Yeah, it sort of makes sense. It makes more sense than this is a completely different topic, but in Akito the Exiled, which is this spin-off OVA, a character gets Geass to die, and he resists it. And somehow he turns this die command into the same thing Suzaku has going on. It's super weird and doesn't really make too much sense.
And Suzaku does lose to Colin later, so
yes.
He's not all powerful.
No, he is not.
So, what did you mean, Heraclius, by that Suzaku has less going on in this season? Because what I noticed was that he was less light-hearted, but that kind of made sense because of Euphemia's death.
Yes.
So, what do you think he had going in season 1 that he doesn't have in season 2?
Well, in season 1, Suzaku is constantly he's of course the main rival for Lelouch, and usually it's Lelouch does something morally questionable, and Suzaku says, "How could you do such a thing?" But at the same time, then the Britannians tell him, "Hey, if anyone surrenders, shoot them," and Suzaku has to go along with that. And there's sort of this heightening tension between means and ends this whole way through, and Suzaku eventually gets to the point by the end of season 1 where he's willing to throw out means just because he wants Lelouch dead, because he wants revenge for his murdered lover, quite understandably. And he also has this view where he thinks Lelouch is the person someone who will always betray the world rather than let the world betray him. Season 2, that is still pretty much Suzaku's view of Lelouch through the vast majority of the series until like episode 18. That's pretty unchanging. He spends much of the show like unknowing whether Lelouch is Zero or vice versa. He does, to be fair, he is actively deceiving Nonali, so that's something his character is actively
Can I
doing.
say something real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Suzaku in episode 8, when they're at they're basically at this funeral thing for Euphemia. Okay, Suzaku when he puts Nunali's Yuffie thing in the water, he sees another one in the water that says Euphemia, and it's Lelouch's Euphemia. And I think that's the moment when he knows that Lelouch isn't he doesn't no, but like that's why he can't let it go that Lelouch is alive still. So
well, or rather that Lelouch has regained his memories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like he knows that he remembers it. So
he
knows.
Yeah, but in general, I just sort of felt like it's not that Suzaku has nothing to do. Like, there's this one scene where he attempts to give refrain to Colin, and then he immediately regrets it, and he lets Colin beat him.
It's like he's becoming more and more like Lelouch, but he doesn't want to be like Lelouch. But then he lies to Lelouch when they have that meeting together. He like lies to him. So
no, but he doesn't. He doesn't. That's the
point. Oh
yeah,
he did. Yeah.
Yeah, Schneisel was playing tricks on him the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's the tragic aspect of it, is those two characters finally come together, and they're finally willing to be somewhat honest with one another. Lelouch actually lies to Suzaku about all the terrible things he did out of his own pride, and Suzaku kind of sees through that because he mentions that it's the same look that he had on his face after he just killed his own father. That look of incredible internal guilt and angst. But then, of course, that recording that Schneisel makes is what actually unseats Zero ultimately. Basically, like just a moment of showing trust with one another and showing openness can actually be very decisive if you are completely distrusting and completely hiding your identity from your closest followers, which is very much like Lelouch's own fault. They set that up well throughout this season. Like, Lelouch does consistently make steps to make the Black Knights distrust him. First, he provides zero explanation for why he
Nunali.
Yeah, he provides zero explanation for why he abandoned them in season 1. He could have just said that someone important to me was kidnapped and I made a tactical lapse in judgment. I think most characters, I think most of the Black Knights would have somewhat understood that, but he just stonewalls and said, "No, this was all part of the plan the whole time." And it's like, yeah, right. You think the Black Knights are fucking idiots? Of course they're not. And then
there's one that's an idiot. Real quick, that dude, the one, the ace pilot dude that's like been with them the whole time, and he has a goatee, and he's like, I don't know, he's like one of their ace pilots. He always gets drunk, probably. Dude, the way he dies is so funny, dude. He like gets cut in half, and then he like turns around because he has a little bit of plot armor, and he shoots him a little bit, and then Suzaku just shoots his thing into his face, and he blows up.
Well, I don't think he dies. Actually, I think he ejects. And
really, he got out.
I think he's still present.
Dude, everyone freaking lives. Everyone
lives. Like Cornelia gets shot in the fucking bat.
Look, Boomy's dead. Oh no, not. Just kidding.
Yeah, no. Outside of Lelouch himself, almost no one.
That guy must have a trigger finger on that damn eject button, dude. Just ready to go.
So,
But anyways, what I was saying, Suzaku feels like he. Well, I guess if I'm going to go back to Lelouch, he also drives his people further away when he asks them to deal with Geass, to deal with the whole Geass cult. And he could have explained something of the mechanics to these people, that these are wild magic users, believe it or not, and like even if you think they're children, they're not. They'll take control of your mind, other stuff. You can't show mercy,
I mean,
etc., etc. But he has no explanation for them, and he just says, "Kill the children, kill the children." And
You
understandably,
do see the children kind of be evil. You do see them
yeah,
evil.
but not enough for the actual
Not
pilot.
enough? Oh, just kill this dude. Okay, yeah, but you're right. I get it.
Yeah, like one pilot saw that. Most of the other pilots just saw,
Yeah.
let's kill children.
I mean,
and they were like, this is, and what makes
Women
it
and
worse,
children
to
and
be fair-
families.
and what makes it worse is Zero never sold himself on just the idea of I'm for Japan. He sold himself on the idea
He's kind of
we're
bipolar a
knights.
little bit. He's a little bipolar.
Yeah. He sold himself on the idea of we're knights for justice and we have standards. Well, killing children is defying those
No,
standards.
dude. Okay, on that episode when he's all like getting on the refrain, okay, when Lelouch wants to get on the refrain.
That's a great scene. That's a
yeah,
great
dude. Okay, but like before that, he gets in. There's an alleyway where he confronts this group of people. Okay, and he's telling them like, when you use Japanese like slaves or whatever, you're worse than the Britannians. Okay, but everything he's saying about himself. Okay, because he does all. He's just been doing that for the last 2 seasons. He's been using the Japanese. Like he uses the Japanese daily. So when he's like torturing these people, he's basically kind of almost like doing it to himself in a way.
He is.
About the children, I don't think he could have revealed to them to his side about Geass and all that stuff. So I don't know. Maybe he could have tried coming up with some kind of an explanation, though.
Well, that is sort of like his thing in general, and I feel like that is sort of a running plot for him. Is he doesn't want to show that mutual trust even to his inner circle, and to do so is risky. It is undoubtedly risky. There will be people that will be sort of suspicious, but if it's revealed to them in a much worse capacity, if it's revealed to them by your enemies at your lowest point, they will be even more suspicious, and they'll turn on you.
I mean, to be honest, yeah, go on.
I tend to take the feeling that after Lelouch and all his followers had gotten on into China and all that, I felt like that would have been the appropriate time to reveal his identity to the core Black Knights. Because at that point, you're outside of Japan, you don't need to be running this dual identity thing anymore, and to do so would generate all this internal trust with them, and at that point, no one would think, "Oh, this is just some long con by Britannia. Lelouch had sacrificed too much." That would be completely implausible.
I see. Because I kind of didn't get why they. I mean, I kind of get why they felt betrayed, but still, I mean, Lelouch does make a good point when he says to Cullen, when she finds out on the island that, like, you wouldn't have made it this far. Like, Japan has come this far because of me. So I mean, what does it matter that I've been brainwashing people left and right or something? And I don't think. Yeah.
But the thing is, he never brainwashed his own people. But his people don't know that. Which is
I think Colin knows it. I think Colin knows it. And I think that's why she always rejects him. I think for that thing, because she wants to know that she's not brainwashed. You know, she wants to know that he's not controlling her.
Yeah, and Lelouch reveals that to her in like episode 3 of season 2.
So you think that the reason why they turned on Lelouch was because they thought that they might be brainwashed?
I thought that was a bad. No, dude, I'm totally with you, good student. Because I thought that was a bad. Like when they all turn on Lelouch, I was like, "What the fuck? What's going on right now?"
Yeah, people people point to that as being an issue they have. For me, I can see like they are setting that up through so many different parts, and you have to also understand in that scene when they're doing that, the Black Knights are. This is in the context of one, a Britannia that's talking about bringing back Japan as a special zone, and two, the Black Knights have just lost a campaign, and while they're not beaten, they don't really have any good options to go on the offensive. This is very much if they want to switch sides, if they want to make things easier for themselves, this is prime time to do so.
Yes. I mean, to be fair, I think Sneisel, or whatever the fuck his name is, did say that he would give them
Pretzel.
Japan.
Yes, they
in
make that
exchange.
demand, and Schneisel says, "Yeah, sure." Yeah, and I have no doubt Schneisel would. Like he may nuke a whole bunch of cities in order to get people to comply, but he'll give them Japan. Why not?
Do you think the Dark Knights know about somewhat of the Damocles thing?
Oh,
Black
I think
Knights.
they had no idea until Schneisel revealed it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you guys think, Vas? Do you think that Code Geass became more rule of cool, more of a super robot show where like you have just a bunch of super powerful mechs in the air. So basically, terrain does not matter.
Well,
No.
having powerful mechs does not make it a super robot show. But I will. Everything established is like real robot. Real robot is sort of like more feel like Gundam 00 has a Gundam that can teleport and do this all sorts of weird stuff. It's still definitively a real robot for various reasons, but
I guess
Yeah.
does it become less tactic based and more rule of cool based?
it sort of does. Essentially, a lot of the scenes, like where they're destroying, a lot of people like the mountain arc, and I agree with them. I think the mountain arc in season 1 is very well done, sort of like the height of them using tactics and strategy, and very interesting. You still have some of that. I outlined already that there are essentially two scenes, two parts where it actually plays a role, and that's the battle with Shinkei and the Chinese, and then later the battle with Schneisel. And even the one with Shinkei, that's very much under. That's very much
I liked it.
doesn't feel as strategic, just because the final play of it is just
It was a
I
bit
have big
MacGuffin-y.
robot.
Yeah, a more powerful robot, a power up.
Essentially, because they all
were we
have.
always gonna dang new nightmare frame? I felt like every episode it was like new nightmare frame,
Yes.
new nightmare frame, new nightmare
Yes.
frame.
Very much so. And you had.
What's the development time on these damn things, guys?
Yeah, it's like the opposite of Gasaraki, I guess.
Oh yes, exact opposite. This is exactly what they would have been pressuring them to do in Gasaraki, and what they had to tell them no. But yeah, a lot of the
I did like how the Gurren got upgrades, though. I really did like that.
Yeah, like for example, you most of the duels in season 1 were only between the Gurren and the Lancelot. Now it's like most of the battles are just these duels, and tactics does tend to fade into the background.
Colin gets taken out for like half the season. She's like
Yeah,
out for a quarter. Where's Colin?
Yeah, that is a I say a definite downside of the show is Colin, you're right, just because she captured, does go to the rear of the show, and she doesn't have anything to do. And then, like, in the last 5 episodes, it's just like, well, do I trust Lelouch or not? And Lelouch gives her the cold shoulder, basically, so she won't die alongside him.
It's very shallow. It's very shallow.
Yeah. Yeah, and
The
more could have been-
the Suzaku subplot is pretty much the only other thing where she's like beating the shit out of Suzaku every day or something. You know?
No,
pretty much it.
that just happened once.
Okay, one time.
Yeah, and
I'm trying to give her a little bit, okay?
I know, I like her too, but she doesn't have much to do. And
Yes.
yeah, and Suzaku. Yeah, and what I was saying with Suzaku is, it doesn't feel like in season 1, it feels like every time Suzaku is being forced to internally justify something to himself more. Suzaku, by contrast, feels pretty static, and feels like he's just making excuses and being bitter at Lelouch most of the season. At least that was my feeling.
So now we have the important question, of course. Who is best girl? Let's start with you, Lou.
Colin.
And Heraclius?
I like both Colin and C2 a lot. If we're going to do shipping wars and that type of thing, I've always been on the side of, I think, well, not always, but I think C2 is the better choice. Especially in this one, they sort of set them up as...
They do.
Yeah, very much intimately understanding one another.
They do.
C2 even talks a little bit about how she was surprised that she'd have someone that
No,
she thought
C2's
would
whole
sort of give-
backstory is intertwined with Lelouch. You're totally correct. Yes.
Yeah, very much coming to the conclusion of actually does find someone that makes her life feel like it's worth living, where she doesn't just want to commit suicide because she has no one around her that she can relate to.
I think it's the first time she's felt like genuine love or like acceptance, because she had that Geass where everyone was loving her, and like when she went with the nun the very first time, she's naked, so she's had physical love of every type you could imagine. I'm sure. You know?
Yes.
So she knows what she all thinks it's fake. So when she's with the Lelouch, it feels real.
Yes. Very much so, and I think that's all quite well done. In terms of shipping, and they do sort of give Colin a sloppy seconds by giving Ogino.
Did she end up with Geass? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Who cares? But more importantly, have you seen this trope of basically the eternal? I shall not say that. Some kind of character which is alive, is immortal, but has gotten tired of life or something. Because it kind of feels familiar, but I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head.
I can think of... this isn't exactly the same, but Holo in Spice and Wolf is actually similar to C2 in a whole number of capacities. I always sort of joke to myself that if Lelouch did live at the end of season 2, that they essentially just became traveling merchants, just like Lawrence and Holo. But Holo is actually just personality-wise very similar to C2, and she has the same immortal thing going on, and she doesn't necessarily want to commit suicide, but she is just incredibly, incredibly lonely and is looking for her hometown.
Yeah, I think that guy from Gasaraki was also kind of a suicidal immortal.
Yes, he was too.
Yeah.
The most recent villain in One Piece, the guy that he wants to commit suicide and he can't.
Oh,
It's
this is Fate,
Kaido.
but
Kaido.
yeah, this is going into Fate Grand Order, but Skahak, who is the master of Lancer from Fate Stay Night, Kahulin, she's set up as her curse is that she's immortal and her wish is to die. So,
yeah. So Vas, who is best girl?
I think the most straightforward interpretation again is Shichu. For all the reasons explained, I don't need to, repeat what everyone else has said.
well, I
But
gave the shipping reasons. What are the personal reasons that you'd like her?
Situ, I like her personality basically. The tropes that Situ embodies, that you have identified, have basically been molded into the. I probably shouldn't use the word because YouTube will censor it. But basically, imagine the word in Japanese for attractive little girl and grandma, and search it in the Pixiv dictionary. You will see a bunch of characters that fit this trope. Hollow is one. Even Fire Emblem had a lot of characters like that, like Nyx from Fates is like that. Yes, and anyway, internally, there's multiple characters that basically love Lelouch. Cullen is implied to, or I don't know how
It's pretty
it's pretty in your face.
obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, she doesn't make a technical confession at any point, but
it's pretty obvious. You need to be.
Yeah, she literally tries to kiss him at the end just to see if he'll reciprocate, and then like at the start, she's half willing to let Lelouch completely take advantage of him and take advantage of her and fuck her, and she only is against it at the last second because she doesn't want it like this, essentially.
Yeah, you have to be Tenki from Tenki Muyo not to get it. So
yeah, pretty much. From season 1, it's like stated outright that Lelouch and Euphemia left each other in the past, and they sort of, even as grown-ups, they're still kind of, weird around each other. And I don't know if it was carried over in the dub, but in the Japanese, it's stated outright that Narali is in love with Lelouch. Like the sort of love that she's referencing isn't, the sibling love.
Can I say something real quick before we move in? Just sorry to interrupt, Voss. When we're talking about C2 and the love between Lelouch, okay, one thing I thought was really cool was, okay, the episode where Shirley dies, okay, and Lelouch uses Geass on her, and he's like, you gotta live, or, and she's like, I'm gonna be reincarnated. I'll be reincarnated. And then that's the very end of that episode, okay? And then the opening of the next episode starts with C2. So did anyone get the feeling maybe that C2 is a reincarnation of Shirley, kind of?
I mean, I'd have to rewatch that.
Because Shirley was in love with Lelouch, and then she dies, and she's like, "I'm gonna be reincarnated," and her eyes glow like she has Geass going on. And
her eyes are glowing because Lelouch's previous Geass was undone, so Lelouch is Geassing her to live, but Geass can't stop.
But she's not. But she's not saying I'm gonna live. She's saying I'm gonna be reincarnated.
Yeah. I mean, you could go for a wild interpretation like that.
I don't know. I just felt like a figure of speech to me.
Yeah,
I love you so much.
Yeah,
I'll fall in love with you again.
Just weird how it went from that into the C2's past. It was just weird.
I don't feel like there's enough in common between Shirley and C2.
Well, it was like the fact that it was just this weird subplot in that one episode where Shirley's like, even though I lost my memories, I fell in love with you again, and all throughout time, I'll keep falling in love with you again, so I'll be reincarnated, and it seems like as if C2 is in love with Lelouch for real. I don't know, it's just weird.
I mean, you could totally write a fanfic about that, and it could go places. But
I don't want a fanfic. I'm just based on the episodes I've seen. I'm just.
I have like 10 invites for the archive of our own, so if you ever need an account, just hit me up.
I mean, that's just stuff that happened in the episodes, guys.
I didn't know it was invite only now. So let's see. I guess so. Who is best girl then? Was you didn't answer that? I guess
he said C2.
Yes, I liked C2 the best personally. I have a thing for tsundere girls. I mean, I liked Asuka best in Evangelion. I liked Haruhi best in the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. So I mean, I have a type.
Well, isn't Colin more the tsundere than C2?
Yes, but I like the flavor that C2 has better than Colin's.
That's fair. She's very sardonic, and she's the type that likes to get in verbal repartee with Lelouch, and they have these back and forths.
Yeah, he sees her. I don't know if it's exactly like that in the series, but I think he views her like his intellectual equal. He can talk to her in depth about things.
He can. Some people have pointed out, and I think this is quite accurate. There is this one fan artist called Geass, who is, I guess you could say, basically in love with C2, does nothing but C2 fan art, and has been doing it for about a decade now. And a lot of people have joked, and I think it's quite accurate, that if they'd made a sequel movie or a sequel series, whatever, like only a couple years after season 2, they could have like really paired Lelouch up with anyone. But because you've had a decade of like Geass being 95% of Code Geass fan art that's still going, they had to end it with Lelouch ending with C2 in that movie. They really had no choice. And of course, that's what they did.
My impression is that she is also the favored pairing in the fandom. I mean, if you look
I like
at the
Lelouch with C2, but it's like, just why not both, guys? Why not both?
Well, yeah. If you buy the official merchandise, you will get everyone. Yeah, everyone loves Lelouch. Don't worry about that.
Including Suzaku, of course.
Well, C2 being the favorite in the in the shipping wars. I mean, if random people like Iske favor C2, I don't think. I think there is something to it.
I feel like Colin was nearly as favored and surely had a sizable minority back in the day, but now it's like everyone's moved on and it's just C2.
Whatever, I'm cool. I'm cool being the one Colin. I'm cool.
If that's the case,
I like being the odd man out.
If that's the case, then I'll go with Shirley. Why not?
That's great.
I didn't like Shirley at all.
Really. I find her. I find it like
he liked them like tsunderes.
I like the crazy girls. I love the crazy girls.
Well, it isn't like that, but she was better at some points, but I don't really like the tropes that she was forced into. So
like
I don't know. It's a personal preference.
Which tropes?
I think the Callan has, out of the people in the Asteroid Academy, Callan has a much more interesting backstory with her brother and issues with addiction and so on. I think it's a more interesting story to tell than well, personally I liked it better than Shirley's life story.
Well, with Shirley, it's basically just high school crush type thing, and she has it because she recognizes Lelouch is this person that pretends to be apathetic, but actually cares about others deeply, and so that gets her going. And then you have what?
That was just
That's
funny.
50 Shades of Grey stuff.
Yeah. It sort of is. Yeah. And then you have the whole interplay where she feels all this conflict, and I think that's quite well done in season 1, where uh, she feels all this love for Lelouch, and she recognizes that fundamentally, is there a better term than good person? I hate using that term, but there's not a better term right now. That Lelouch is a good person, and but at the same time, he's responsible for her father's death, so she feels all this existential angst. And of course, I thought that was all very well done in season 1, and of course they bring it back in season 2, and she only gets like an episode to worry about that. But uh, I think it works out well, and I also like the touch that Lelouch erased her memories, but she still ends up falling in love with him again, anyways. Like, Lelouch should have been, how shall we put it, more scrupulous in how he used his Geass that time, or
Yeah,
uh,
oopsie.
or oopsie, but or maybe just found another way. But he was emotionally distraught, and he was just spur of the moment type thing. So it's quite understandable.
Most of his mistakes come when he is emotionally distraught.
Oh yeah, and that's very much like his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. He almost doesn't want to fully commit to being a devil is the thing. He at the same time he wants to have people that he'll trust, but he doesn't actually want to have show
I feel like until
trust to
the
people.
very end of the show, you would side with Pretzel Man. You know, you'd side with
Schneid-
Pretzel the whole.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
you'd side with Pretzel.
Schneisel is actually very reasonable throughout this whole season until he just sort of reveals that his master plan is to not just threaten to nuke the entire world if they don't go to peace, but
That was so great.
but to actually nuke
He gets a little too
every
into
major
it in there. He gets a little too into it. He's
Yeah,
like,
he's
like,
like-
should I nuke these people? It'd be a little too greedy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but then by the end it's like, oh no, I'm just as like a warning. I'm going to nuke every major metropolis and tell everyone unless they obey me
Shit.
and and bring peace. Then I'll nuke them more. It's like, okay, that's super unnecessary.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
a lot of character arcs in Code Geass. Well, basically, Charles, Snigel, Lelouch, and Suzaku are basically the same character. They're extremely idealistic person who gradually becomes the sort of person that says that the ends justify the means.
Yeah, that's
And-
actually one thing I didn't touch on that I should have mentioned is they reveal, I think it's sometime here in season 2, where, or maybe they talked about it in season 1 too, that Suzaku did used to be sort of this character. He did hate Britannia viscerally. He was the type of character that was willing to just that was a lot more like Lelouch and was a lot more self-righteous in terms of doing whatever it takes to do what's right back when they were kids. And Suzaku's sort of changed a little bit since then, which again speaks to your point of them fundamentally being similar characters.
Yes, that's because essentially what Code Geass is trying to do narratively is criticize slightly the idea of the grand narrative that came after the Enlightenment. Basically, that there is this idea you have about society and history, and everything has to fit through it in order to make sense, and in order to progress society.
Mhm.
And you have
Make
Ragnarok.
history.
Yeah, you have Ragnarok with Charles. You have the Sword of Damocles with Snaitel. You have loyalty to one's superiors with Suzaku and in one's nation, so we say. And you have loyalty to liberty and liberalism, so we say, with Lelouch. And well, Lelouch sort of achieves his own ends. So the message of the series is that this is the superior, idea. You can disagree with it, but this is basically the message that the series is trying to give out. This is it's interesting with Japan. This is criticizing the grand narrative as an idea is usually a postmodernist sort of thing, but Japan never really had postmodernism, and you can really tell with Code Geass. So it criticizes grand narratives, but it replaces it with its own grand narrative. So that's
which I think is healthier, anyways.
Good take.
That's what's happening in the West as well. I mean, if you watch, superhero films, which personally I don't like, but you can clearly tell they are criticizing typical grand narratives, but they are replacing them with something of their own.
So I guess by a grand narrative, you mean something like I guess some kind of ideal, like or that we shouldn't do everything necessary to get to an ideal, but just try to make do with how things are or something.
No, it's a terminology actually. Basically, if you look at the interland writings from people who lived in the 20th century, you will see like what people were trying to do in Germany and in Russia and so on. They generally believed that this is the way forward. This is the way society needs to be shaped in order to progress mankind. Yeah, this is progress, and this is what the grand narrative means. And like to parody it a little, like picture the stereotypical new atheist type who thinks that science trademark is the way forward for society, and science trademark will lead us forward. This is a type of grand narrative.
So what would be Lelouch's grand narrative would be liberalism or something?
Yeah, it's stated like it's pretty on the nose that he found the United States of Japan.
But he gives up the power.
Yeah,
he founds the United States of Japan, so he's pretty clearly referencing enlightenment.
I'm just saying. Sorry to mean to interrupt. I'm just saying, like in terms of like he gives up the power once he's achieved, full.
Yeah, but that's also because he's trying to destroy Britannia and trying to pave the way for his United Federation of Nations, which is, it's literally just the UN. And everyone's part of the UN, and you have one world global government, which, we can clearly see all the downsides of that.
Yeah, but I don't think that the story is saying that Lelouch is necessarily wrong, because in the end he ends up getting his way.
Of course, the show completely stands by him on that. The one thing that I found, I don't know, I guess sort of
I want to hear the rest of Vass's point. I was just saying, like,
it seemed
like it was communism where Lelouch gives up his power.
No,
I wouldn't call it communist at all. No.
What? Well, this is my interpretation.
Full power of the globe.
That's not communism. That's just absolutism.
Communism, totalitarianism.
Fine. Yeah.
But he gave up But it's like he had. It's like communism is basically you're supposed to, form the system, and then the person's supposed to give up that power, and then the system runs itself, right?
I think it's something. It's more something like say Bismarck or Napoleon III. One of those enlightened despots. I think Ataturk in Turkey. The kind of leader who would basically take all power to himself in order to force through liberal reforms like abolishing the aristocracy and so on. And then when he's done, he would relinquish his power or something.
Yeah, you could analogize it to that. Only I'd say that Bismarck and Napoleon and Ataturk had the idea of you take that train to where you want to get off, and then you stop. And Lelouch obviously doesn't have that idea. He wants to commit suicide and hopes that now that Britannia is effectively dead, that their old customs are effectively dead, that his new, completely out of nowhere created UN will be able to govern things.
Yes, he basically wants to destroy Britannian culture and replace it with a more egalitarian kind of thing, I guess.
What was Voss saying? Or
Sorry.
did
Well, this is my interpretation of the series, but I think it's pretty, established in the series. So don't take it as absolute. What in the beginning of the series in season 1, basically Lelouch's standpoint is that the people are living in miserable conditions, and if only we could show them the way, they would recognize the value of our ideals and then coordinate into improving the world.
Yes.
Season 2, his opinion, and because I think he's supposed to be seen as morally justified in doing it, the opinion of the authors is that people, even if they are shown the correct thing, they will not do it because there is a problem with coordination issues. And he's trying to solve it by becoming like Satan incarnate. So people are forced into recognizing there is a common threat and uniting and sort of stumbling into his position by trying to oppose the fictional devil that he has become.
Yeah.
And this is shown as being, the correct position. This is, this has to do with the historical anomaly that Japan is. They had this extremely weird honor system around Bushido and national pride. And, during World War II, this was abused into doing some pretty horrifying stuff. And only after seeing the insanity that ensued were they able to form a more liberal and egalitarian society.
Well,
So
yeah.
that's,
I mean, if you ask the average Japanese nationalist, he would say that none of it happened. But yeah,
yeah. If you can get this response from nationalists around the world.
I take the 50-50 approach on such matters.
I like that take, Voss. Though.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, Lelouch becomes literally
with Nunnals there. With Nunnals, like his little sister, like chained up, like it was great. I love that.
Oh yeah. Now the one thing that I sort of was found a little strange is Charles has the same thing going on where he works together with V2 and he's sort of willing to push everything towards this one plan to like remake the world and then Lelouch where Charles specifically is willing to lie to the world. He's willing to pretend to be this absolute tyrant, to espouse this social Darwinism that he doesn't really care for or believe for just because it's convenient. Just in order to, because it's the most expedient way to get towards his solution for the world. Lelouch is following in his father's footsteps and doing the exact same thing after he kills his father. And I found that a little tonally, or at least theme-wise, weird. That you'd think if Lelouch is following exactly in his father's footsteps, that he would actually be punished for doing so. But obviously, he's not.
He does die, kind of. If he doesn't resurrect. If he doesn't resurrect.
But he accomplished everything he wanted to, is the thing.
Because the commentary that Geass is trying to... The commentary that is trying to pass isn't that Charles is bad or Lelouch is good or whatever. The point that they're trying to make is that you, the watcher, the viewer, the people, your entire planet is stupid. You shouldn't be bottlenecked by a coordination problem in order to fix a system that everyone simultaneously knows is broken, but you don't have the individual strength to fix it. It will make more sense if you read this extremely long essay called Meditations on Moloch on Slate Start Codex. You will see the parallels immediately, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Lelouch does. I think it was back in season 1. He does say like, "If not us, then who?" Do you think if you just wait around for someone else to save you, it'll happen? That time will never come. He says that quite directly to the audience and to the Black Knights.
Yeah, this isn't a message to in series Code Geass puts its aesthetics and its its rule of cool above what makes sense, and this is this is the reason people like Code Geass. And so everything that the characters are saying, they aren't saying to each other, they're saying it to you.
Oh, naturally. But I mean, that's all sorts of fiction. Like you always have the character who's like speaking the message to the audience and is talking just as much and is essentially just operating as author surrogate. You see that also all over the place in media. Like almost any show that has a message has that at least some point.
Yeah, but having a message and a point is for high school essays, as the great D&D said.
So, what was that whole thing about? So I guess in a way, it's almost like Lelouch, his father, and Snizel were they all had basically sort of the same goal.
They
Maybe.
did.
Yeah.
Just work together. Just work together. Friendship.
And they could have, but there was that inherent distrust between them. I guess you could say that.
There was one more thing I wanted to say about it, but then at the end, Lelouch said that he was that Charles just looked towards the past.
Schneisel the present,
and that he was a futurist or something. So what's the difference here?
Well, in terms of that, Charles
the three Jokers.
Charles is explicitly trying to bring people back from the past, and trying to reunite people with them. So in that sense, he's from the past. Schneisel is trying to essentially threaten everyone into just accepting peace. So in that aspect, he is simply for the present. Any ideas of grand reforms he has aren't really quite as clear. He seems more focused on just forcing people to accept the status quo, and he will do certain amounts of reforms, but very present focused in that capacity. Lelouch is future focused in that he wants to have this whole wild thing to create like a whole new country with all this new stuff and these new ideals and yada yada and stuff like that.
I see. Another difference. Yeah, go on, boss.
Yes, that's this is correct, and I will also like to add that basically the three characters that are compared are the three common grand narratives that existed around the 20th century. In case you haven't noticed, basically, Code Geass doesn't happen in the Anno Domini timeline. It's like the years that you are seeing are 50 years. Greater than they are in real life. So
yeah,
this is actually happening in our 20th century.
Yeah, I looked it up, and apparently their timeline, this AFD, it's like after something other. It's supposed to be after this fictional chieftain actually managed of the Celts actually managed to push the Romans out of Britain, and they date the start of their timeline to that. Although it's apparently only a Britannian timeline for obvious reasons that they adopted when they went into exile. So presumably, the EU could use AD, or they could use the French Revolutionary calendar. That's quite probable actually. And then who the hell knows what East Asia uses?
Yeah, the comparisons with past, present, and future basically are referencing ideas from the 20th century. You had, a crazy nationalist movement, if you recall, in the 20th century that has a lot to
Did
do
nothing
with
wrong, yes.
yes, of course, not absolutely nothing bad that happened over there. Yeah, anyway, that is trying to reincarnate the lost vision, the lost greatness of the past in some fashion. And Charles is supposed to subtly allude to that. Snigel is sort of an allusion to what happened in post-Lenin Russia, where you had, you didn't believe, strictly speaking, in anything. The only thing you believed in was the absolute power of the state to destroy everything you know. And Lelouch is referencing sort of the ideas of utopian socialism that existed around the time of the French Revolution. Yeah, I
I
think
don't
those are.
I don't know if I'd make those comparisons. I mean, I sort of get where you're coming from, but Schneisel, I mean, I guess you could say he does want to nuke so many different places. But even so, he comes across, he wants to nuke half the world, but he still comes across as less paranoid than Stalin. I have to say, and he doesn't come across as the type of guy that would be like constantly internally purging or something like that. Cynicism, yes, but I'd say that's more Brezhnevite than Stalinist in character.
Yeah, and Charles isn't like super racist either, like personally speaking, which the other guy kind of was, if you recall.
Which is, yeah, and the thing is, Charles is just doing it, and even then, Britannia feels like and Charles's views feel like a very bad parody at times of social Darwinism. Like, there's a point at which he just says, he literally proclaims strength is everything, and
He does that a few times.
well, he talks about how inequality is not wrong and that people are inherently unequal, which is fine. People talk about that. I agree with him on that point. But then he talks about how in one speech where they're using the exact same footage from the season 1 speech, and he talks about how what are laws? What are these things? Just power, the person with strength. And it's like, well, okay, you've just told all your subjects that if they can get away with it, they should cheat and steal and do all that other stuff, and that will show that they are stronger and more powerful and that they have more sovereignty to you than you do. And it's like, this feels like a terrible idea, and that no country could run itself like this. You are an anarchist.
Dude, he's off in the god room. He doesn't give a fuck about his people. He's off in the god room, dude.
I know he's off in the god room and doesn't give a crap about his own people. But at the same time, Britannia is incredibly rigid. It works incredibly well as a government.
Dude, okay, the Knights of the Round is...
If they actually believed in this shit that Schneisel is talking about, it would be a mess.
I think the Knights of the Round is a perfect example, okay, because they're basically Inquisitors from 40K, and we get an example in the show where one of them literally, like, without warning, goes into one of their own facilities, and, like, they're all shooting at him and stuff, and he's, like, blowing them up and shit, so it's like, this isn't a very organized,
yeah, but at the same time, this is like this is a world empire that is very stable. Most of the leaders are actually shown to be like men of virtue,
yes, I'll agree.
Like this is a very.
But it's like nobility. There's corrupt ones. There's not corrupt ones.
Yeah. There's, if anything, that's sort of like a.
In fact,
something that
I
from
felt
our
like. I felt like Pretzel was very wholesome and like he was the good guy for most of the series until the very end when it's revealed he's actually the bad guy, you know? Which I think they did to make Lulu more, you know, compassionate so he could be more compassionate towards Lulu. Or else why would you make him evil?
Yeah, and that is sort of, I guess you could say, that's the upside of a more absolutist or openly oligarchic society is you're going to have your good, you're going to have your bad, but it is very much on the basis of virtue, and it's just going to be good on the basis of whoever is the individual leader. And sure, you can put in place systems. You can have a more systemized system like this UFN, but the issue with such a system, is eventually people. There is no system that is so perfect that it cannot be subverted. Eventually, people do subvert them, and once you have that in place, you will have. Those evil people will use the system itself and its own laws in order to essentially block out any who would try to change things, which itself is like one of course, the debates between Suzaku and Lelouch.
Yes, because
and which is why people tended to side with Lelouch more, because it's like, hey, Britannia's just massacres Japanese whenever it's convenient to them. This is intolerable. This can't be negotiated with. And yeah, it feels funny in a way. Code Geass sometimes feels like it's trying to make Suzaku feel just as justified because, hey, rebellion is bad, terrorism bad, but
yeah, you'd think Lelouch should be siding with Suzaku and Nunnally. Like, why isn't he like go with them? Lelouch, what are you doing?
Wait, in terms of like when? Oh, and like R2?
In R2 when Suzaku becomes a Knight of the Round and then he gets Nunnally. At that point, I was kind of thinking in my head, I'm like Lelouch, what exactly are you fighting for right now? Like, maybe you should just kind of give up and go with Suzaku at this point, bro.
Well, I'd actually be on his side in terms of not really trusting that. One thing I'm shocked that they didn't do anything with is Suzaku's not, while he's been fighting this whole time in order to get personal sovereignty over Japan, he's not been taking any concrete steps in order to actually make things better in Japan. And things are actually worse than ever.
Yeah, we don't get any of that at all.
Things are actually worse than ever at the start of R2. And you'd think it would be a prime vector to go there to say that Suzaku's completely blinded himself, and he's being strung along on false promises.
Yeah, but
that's clearly not the case.
Yeah, but I think what they are showing is that in R2, at the beginning of R2, that it's because of Lelouch's actions that things got worse.
Well, yeah, but that's a little bit like saying when you're a slave and you rebel, things get worse. Like, okay, but justice still demands the fact that you rebel. Like,
yeah, maybe.
I consider that to be very...
Yeah, I mean, I guess from Suzaku's point of view, it's like 10 million people or something died, and things are even worse than they were before. So, I mean, if you're going to do the rebellion, finish the job instead of going after Nunnally
yeah,
or something.
sure. Rather than going after fucking Nunnally, yes. That is something that that is sort of
kind of mans up after the 10 million. He kind of mans up after the 10 million.
So
that is something they do with the conclusion, where Lelouch finally has to realize that I am doing this for people beyond Nunnally. I can't hold her in absolute regard. And he does Geass her at the end when he realizes that Nunnally's goals are essentially the same as his own.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, somebody left a comment on the previous video saying that Code Geass is libtard Death Note, and that Guilty Crown is better than Code Geass. I don't know what to say to him, to be honest.
I have not watched Guilty Crown. I just know it has a terrible reputation. Libtard Death Note isn't the worst comparison, but it doesn't quite do it justice because obviously
That's
Death
a mix
Note.
of a lot of things.
Yeah, Code Geass. Ironically, people think of it as like the worst show, and it's probably not as coherently put together as Death Note, but it has a
You're getting all this other
lot.
stuff.
Yeah, it has a lot more going on than Death Note does.
I feel like Lelouch in the very start of R2 is like when Light's getting surveilled by the police, okay? But it's like that times 20 because it's like the FBI, the entire like FBI of the nation.
Yeah, okay.
Or whatever.
Can we get back to how silly that is? So, okay, he gets Rolo and Valletta both are monitoring him constantly. He realizes that Rolo has like time stoppage powers or something like that.
Okay,
So
by the way, this is the first time we've talked about Rolo for like 2 hours.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Rolo at all because he's not that significant, all things considered.
I kind of liked Rolo. I remember hating him when I first watched it. I remember.
Well, yeah, everyone hated him because he killed Shirley for obvious reasons. Yeah, and
he's a little messed in the head.
Oh, completely. So Lelouch goes back to this school, and he manages to get Rolo and Valletta on his side. Rolo, even though he should have just shot Lelouch immediately, like that should have been what he did. Lelouch realizes that Rolo is actually attached to himself, so he's able to bet that Rolo will actually hear him out and will decide that helping him is in his own best interest.
Are you talking about when he's holding the gun to Lelouch's head?
Yes.
I had canon that with that gun was empty. The Lelouch didn't, because he had Geass, so I had cannoned it that gun didn't even have ammo in it. So even if you pulled the trigger, it wasn't going to kill him.
That's possible. I actually wouldn't discount that.
Because he got it from Shirley, so I figured it was like a prop gun. That's what I was thinking.
If they'd shown that in like a quick scene,
there was no hint of it. Yeah, there was no hint of it at all.
I'm headcanon it. But that would have actually improved the scene greatly because as is, it's just too risky of a gamble. I think
definitely.
And then with Valletta, it's like, oh well, if it got out that you were sleeping with an 11, people wouldn't like that.
Jesus.
Yeah, and if you just brought 0 to them again, that would completely wipe away any stain. There is 0 fucking reason for Valletta to be working with Lelouch, but she just sort of does it because we have to have plot happen.
Isn't she doing it for Ogi? Is that who you're talking about?
No, she's not. Like she seems to want to. She doesn't seem to like. I mean, she has these strange feelings for Ogi, but
she literally is impregnated at the end of the series by Ogi. It's a main plot point, kind of.
Yes, but at the start, like at the end of season 1, she's just out to kill Ogi. Start of season 2.
Yeah, but then there's stuff we don't see. Like there's stuff we don't see in the background that happens. Like we always follow Lelouch. I'm sure there's stuff that happened that we didn't see between them.
Again, she doesn't seem to have any particular. She seems to have some attachment to Ogi there, but not to the point that she wants to actually do anything about it. And she'd still shoot him if he got in his way.
But isn't there the
incredibly rushed and hackneyed with them later?
I could kind of argue there's the point where they have all the Japanese in the area and they all put on the Zero costumes, okay? In that point, I'm pretty sure she pulls a gun on Ogi, but you may be able to like headcanon it that like she doesn't want to shoot him because it might start a political incident, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and we I don't think we've directly talked about that yet, but that is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like I can maybe get that Suzaku would go along with this just because of euphemia trauma, but there was no way they made 1 million Zero costumes.
Yeah,
They do
yeah,
not
dude. That's
have
what I was thinking. Where did those come from? Where's the logistics of this shit?
Like, we're not even talking a couple hundred or 1,000. We're talking.
Yeah, 1
They
million.
say
10?
they
How
say
many million?
1 million.
1 million. Yeah. How the fuck did they get 1 million Zero costumes?
It's not fucking possible.
I'm going to assume that the show's showing them much higher quality than they actually were. And I don't know, in that reality.
That would actually make it more believable if they were like, some of them were like kind of shoddy looking and whatnot.
Yeah, because where'd they come from?
Yeah, the show definitely is on the side of if it's a plot hole to make it look cooler, then do it.
Okay, one thing when when we finally find out who shot Lelouch's mother, okay, like who did it, what happened,
Yeah.
I audibly laughed. Okay, did any of you audibly laugh when you figured out who it was?
That it was V2? I mean,
yeah, I audibly
why?
laughed in that scene. It's so
Why?
cheap, dude. This little kid's like, he's like mowing him down. Little kid, that's great, dude.
It is. Yeah, it is
So great, dude.
Yeah, it is sort of by nature absurd.
He's like, he's mowing him down with a machine gun. It's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
Vas, do they ever really give a good reason why Lelouch doesn't just brainwash everyone from the start like he does at the end?
I mean, I'm going to jump in and just say it's his own pride.
I know, but
Like,
I know you already said that last time, so I wanted to ask Vas and see if he had any other idea.
Yes, he doesn't want to be a tyrant. Basically, like the person that he hates the most in his life is a guy who like is a parody of the absolute tyrant, and I think he has enough justification emotionally to not want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I agree completely. He doesn't like.
Can I give a
trolls.
take on it real quick? Just a lot of the times he's using Geass, he kind of just does it off the cuff, like he needs to do it quickly. And if you say like, okay, you're my slave now, okay, you have to give 2 commands. You have to be like, you're my slave, and then you have to give another command of what to do. So takes a little longer.
Well, the thing is, he could do that a whole lot, but there are 2 issues with that. One is naturally, if you do that to too many enemies, then it becomes pretty obvious that there's something funky going on, which is why he didn't. But the other thing is, I think.
I mean, he did do it a lot at the start because he did it to the whole FBI. Like almost half of the FBI people were completely slave.
He does do that to them. Although technically he tells them to he doesn't actually tell them to follow him. He tells them to ignore any unusual activity, stuff like that.
Yeah, but there's one dude that's following him, and he says specifically like, I made him a slave.
Oh, okay, yeah. But even so, it's sort of a thing that he only does to his enemies, not to his allies. And he didn't even do anything like that in season 1. He does step up from the start of season 2 how brutal he's willing to be, and then by the end he's like, Suzaku tells him, if you're going to be a devil, then commit fully to being a devil, and he says like, okay, and he literally just enslaves all of his soldiers with his Geass.
On the lighter side, I did like how they were dedicated throughout to the orange boy meme joke, where at the end,
oh yes,
he ends up being a fucking
cultivating
farmer.
an orange farm, just as was suggested at the start.
That was so random. That dude just like, okay, I'm on your side now. Okay, completely. Okay.
Oh, it is completely a retcon.
So contrived.
It is, but I'm somewhat okay with it. Like Jeremiah,
I didn't mind it too much, but it was just like the whole episode was this like Terminator, and then it's like, oh, I'm now on your side. I'm the Terminator, and I'm on your side now.
Yeah, Jeremiah was, from my understanding, he was originally
Dude, he
supposed
literally
to.
jumps out of a mech and like stabs a chick, dude. He's like a damn machine.
Oh, and that's and that's not awesome to you.
Dude was amazing, but he's like a literal Terminator.
My understanding is Jeremiah was supposed to be like unceremoniously killed off in season 1, probably about the time with the mountain arc. But he was kept being popular enough that they kept bringing him back in some capacity, and then they brought him. They've of course first brought him back as this experiment, and then he got to be like super hammy. All hail Britannia! And people really liked him for that, and so that got him popular enough that they said, "Okay, let's bring him back for a second season." And hey, why not? Like make him Lelouch's ally, or why not? And they do,
Another thing
yeah,
is,
and it is just sort of random. That's like, oh, he's personally loyal to Lady Marianne for some reason, and for some reason his personal loyalty to Lady Marianne is more important than his loyalty to all of Britannia. And it's like,
It was a little bit of a
it's
stretch,
all
but I kind of got
memes.
it. But dude,
His
also, how did he
His
character-
overcome that?
motivation
How did he
is
overcome it?
memes.
And how
Huh?
did he overcome it?
How did he overcome what?
Just like you said, the dude with. Are you talking about the dude that's? I was thinking about the Japanese guy that has like ends up almost getting caught in that nuke and then he's not in the nuke. I don't know.
Oh, Guilford. Yeah,
Yes, Guilford.
Yeah, he is brought back at the end just so that Cornelia will have her love interest alive. That's
what
it
were
is
you going to say,
magic.
Vas?
Yeah, basically, Jeremiah is a character archetype. The person who is personally loyal to a royal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was a tongue twister. Above his country, basically. I really liked his character arc, to be honest.
Yeah. It is very much a retcon from the first show where like he's literally just essentially they call him purebloods, and he's basically trying to turn Area 11 into his own little fiefdom in season 1. And he fails at that. There's no hint of any of this loyalty
What the
stuff
hell
or
are-
anything like that.
What the hell are purebloods?
Oh, purebloods are presumably just pure-blooded Britannians, like those who haven't mixed with any other.
It seems like a lot
I'm
of people
guessing.
have half 11 blood, which is weird.
Well,
Why
not
is so many people interested in Japan?
Not necessarily 11s, but I think all sorts of areas and all sorts of groups and whatnot. Again, many people have pointed this out. Britannia never really commits to being. They can never decide how evil they want Britannia to be, or how wildly racialist they want Britannia to be, because there does seem to be this acceptance of a certain amount of others if they're brought up through the system. Maybe.
Yeah, because people are wrongfully comparing it to the wrong mustache guy. Britannia is more of a reference to colonial Britain than the mustache guy.
Perhaps.
You should like.
It's like a mix. It's like a mix,
Yeah, Britain was the country that prided itself in being noble and caring for its people, in the same breath as genocidally murdering slaves to death, like overworking them.
Okay.
That was partially why it failed.
Thing is, like, there's a lot of things that are accused of Britain that like didn't really happen. Like, I know in Africa there was some more stuff going on.
What is that called?
Here we go again.
Winners bias or something.
but in some place like India, let's say, what Britannia does to Japan, like all sorts of times, to my knowledge, didn't happen in India. And even in India, they set
I'm
up
not.
a whole system where literally it was just the same princes, but it was under British sovereignty.
Yeah,
Nothing like
I'm not
that is in
really.
Japan.
I'm not really referencing India. I'm referencing the scramble for Africa. You should
Mhm.
if you have not eaten for a while, so you run zero risk of losing your breakfast. You should look into it. It was some pretty brutal stuff.
I'm having my lunch. So I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest. Just seems like propaganda. But let's agree to disagree on that. Well, what about another criticism which I've seen made against Code Geass a lot is that basically it's making you like Lelouch, but you shouldn't like Lelouch because he's a bad guy. So this is a bad anime because it's making you like people who are not good, or something like that.
Lelouch is fine as a moral character. I'm not going to say he's. I'm not going to say he's. I'm not going to say he's perfect or anything like that. But
he kills so many people. How can he become
he
a character?
kills. Well, here's the thing. I basically take the view.
People just excuse it because like he's a Bishonen or whatever.
No, nothing to do with that. When you're basically part of rulership and part of leading rebellion is taking a lot of lives. In season 1, he very much does have all these rules in terms of like, I'm not going to stray, shall we say, beyond the boundaries of the Geneva Convention, even though I'm sure that doesn't exist. I think they have a Tibet Convention they mentioned.
He seems a lot less crazy in season 1, that's for sure.
He does. But I mean, nothing, at least in season 1, nothing he does is. It's pretty much all just laws of warfare stuff. I mean, to condemn Lelouch, you'd have to almost.
I don't condemn
the
him for
idea of
those.
warfare.
Okay, but there's other instances like, okay, when he's having that bad day and then he goes and kills all those, like basically all those people in that alleyway. I mean, he's told that dude to do push-ups for the rest of his fucking life. Okay, I think he's dead now. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe
maybe
I don't think he told them to do it forever. Maybe he just undid it.
He said do push-ups, and that was the Geass. Do push-ups. I mean, that's forever.
I mean, I feel like that's reading too much into the scene, but
there's other instances where he just randomly where he kind of mercilessly kills people. You know, maybe not as mercilessly as Rolo, but
oh yeah. Oh, you know too. Oh, you know too much.
But I do agree with you that I can't condemn him on like the grand warfare, like I'm killing hundreds of people for my nation or whatever. I agree with you.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like the show is wanting you to at least partially condemn him a little for that. Just because he doesn't have like a technical country behind him.
Okay, for instance, dude, when at the very start when they attack the ship that Nunnally is on, okay, and Lelouch is talking with Nunnally, and like every minute he's spending talking with Nunnally, like more of his men are dying. Okay, like he's just sacrificing his men just to talk with Nunnally. Okay, like that's a bit of a moral, you know.
Oh yeah, that's a mistake. But the thing is, a lot of people would make that mistake, and it's just because he cares too much about Nunnally is the thing.
Yeah.
And he's putting. I mean, that's actually very human to put, and everyone does that. They put.
I agree.
They put their family above strangers naturally.
I mean, I guess what they're accusing of is that, like, it's like they're accusing the story of implying that there's a different set of standards for the great men of history or something. You know, that it's okay if they do some evil stuff or something like that. There's a different.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if you are leading a rebellion, if you're leading warfare, etc., you will commit those acts. and not every single one of those acts will be justified. Simply because you're having to go through so many and you don't have the time. You
That's
will
great
make
because-
mistakes.
That's great because that's like the first episode is like 9/11. It's so I love the first episode. It's so great. It's like the strategy, the building blown up. I love the whole episode. And then he kills their general guy because he's like waiting for them.
I
It's
saw
so
it.
great. All of it is
You
great.
like it because it's like 9/11. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
God is great.
God is great.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
I disavow.
Yeah.
Just about completely.
You mean to say that God is
That is
not
no-
great? What are you, some atheist libtard?
I mean, don't Muslims say there is no God but Allah? But I guess in this case it would be there is no God but Lelouch or something.
Well, yeah, Detard, he even Lelouch states in R2 that Detard's whole goal is to make Zero into a new god.
Yeah.
He's not wrong.
Poor
Why would you
Detard.
abandon Zero? That dude is such an idiot. I don't know why he would just. He's like he sees everyone turn. He's like, okay, I guess I gotta turn on him too. I guess.
Well, yeah, because Detard goes with the flow, and the thing is, he was that very much looked like that was going to be the death of Zero.
Yeah, it did. It very much did. Yes, and he go with the flow. And if not for Rolo, that would have been the end of Lelouch.
Did Detard know that Lelouch was Zero?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah, it's revealed to him. He's in
I think he knew for a long
Heisel.
time. He knew for a long time because he was in
I don't know.
Dude, because he was in the okay, because they're in that scene where they're all on the round table or there's a square table and they're talking about Lelouch and like they're all finding out and like Dieter is not surprised at all. He knew.
Well, yeah. I think it would be fair to say I don't think he knew the exact identity, but I think he's not shocked that it would be someone like that. And he also very much does take the view of it.
I think he knew the exact identity. I think because he knew it was a student. He knew the kid. I think he knew it was Lelouch.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, if you do know that it's an Ashford student, well, actually, he wasn't involved in the heist to rescue Lelouch.
Yeah, but he just had information. He was like their spy master guy. He was like their information dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's what I think. That's my headcanon.
Yeah.
So.
But.
All hail Britannia. I think. Is there anything else you guys want to add? I think. I think we discussed most of the stuff that I had in mind of talking about. But is there anything else you want to talk about, Vas?
Yeah. So closing statements. It's my favorite series. I watched it when I was like a teenager, and my favorite thing in the world was Ron Paul. And I still watch it now that I'm 29. And the more that I read about it, the more that I read, the more that I learn about life and everything, the more I appreciate Code Geass.
But
it's
not Ron Paul.
Very few series can actually do that. Where the more you enrich yourself as a person, the more you end up liking it instead of hating it. Like, for example, just try watching Dragon Ball now as an adult.
Still fun, I guess. Some of Dragon Ball Z is still fun, I guess. I don't know. Not that deep, but I still can watch it. So, what about you, Heraclius?
Yeah, I still overall enjoy it. R2 is the weaker season. I've gone over how essentially just R2 has more plot contrivances and plot holes than I'd like. Battles sometimes aren't as interesting. Stuff like that. But the main and there is, compared to the other seasons, this is carried more on solely Lelouch's back rather than the other characters, which is a little sad. But Lelouch is still able to carry this show on his back. And some of the scenes late in R2, both when he's directly confronting Charles and of course his actual death and all that. Those are some of the best scenes Code Geass ever has. So in that aspect, I think it's worthy. It's an inferior season, but it's a worthy enough successor and conclusion to Code Geass.
All right. So, what about you, Lou?
I really liked R2. I think it's like one of my favorite series. I love Code Geass. It's great. I think I really liked when I first watched it. I really hated Rolo, and I remember this time when I watched it, I liked him so much better because I think him and Lelouch's relationship is like a relationship based on lies, and Suzaku and Lelouch's relationship is like a more of a truth based relationship. It was just kind of a cool kind of parallel there. I liked that. I liked how every episode was kind of like, how am I going to get out of this situation? How am I going to get this situation? How am I going to get this situation? It's just really fun, super fun. I loved the show. I loved it. It was great.
All right. So I guess that leaves me. I liked it a lot more than I did last time. I don't know. I didn't like. I guess my expectations were not as high this time. So I think also because I was aware of most of the stuff, I wasn't as bothered by the fast pacing. I just needed to fill in a few blanks about stuff and regarding the plot. And
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot of times where if you have a show where its flaws are very well publicized and everyone talks about them, you go into it and those flaws are just going to like bounce off you. They're not going to bother you as much, and you'll notice the good a lot more in it. I know that was personally the case for me when I finally did watch Gundam Seed Destiny, because I'd heard for like a decade about how shitty that show was. And when I actually sat down and watched it, yeah, a lot of the flaws were there, but I still found a whole lot in that show to like. And I guess the same something similar is happening with you with watching R2.
Lou, what was your score out of 10?
Probably like I initially gave it like a 10 out of 10. I'll probably give it like an 8 out of 10 now.
I see. I think I'll take. I think I said 6 out of 10 last time. I'll bump it up to a 7, almost an 8, basically because of the ending.
Yeah.
And yeah, what is it?
Yeah, I'll give Code Geass season 1 8, and I'll give season 2 a 7.
I see. I don't know. I guess I think I preferred season 2 over season 1. Because as I said, I didn't really get the tactics that much in season 1 anyway. And so I was mainly watching it for the action and the themes. The themes were pretty much continued.
Yes.
And the action, I think, has aged pretty well. I like Super Robot stuff, and even though you say that this is not technically Super Robot, there's a lot of cool beams and and power-ups, and I don't know, I just like that kind of stuff. I wasn't bothered by the fan service at all. I think you are retarded if you can't set aside the fan service from the serious stuff. I think that's your fault. Same with stuff like Kill la Kill, for instance. I just stopped noticing the fan service. Honestly.
That's like an important integral part of the story of that show is fan service. So
yeah, because the message in that is essentially a certain amount of shamelessness, like just don't care about these people. These mouth breathers that try to super sexualize you. Just like don't care.
So yeah, and I think all tasks ahead have been cleared. So get out.